Hey, it's Josh. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go to Watkins Mill Farm in Marysville, Ohio. Why are we doing that? Well, the owners of this farm are good friends of ours from over 20 years ago when we worked together back in CompuServe Network Services. So for those of you that have been around for a while, you might recognize the name CompuServe. It was basically the public internet before the internet. It wasn't public, it was a private service. But anyway, we're going to go out and see him and his wife and see what they've put together. They're focused on heirloom plants in their greenhouse, and they've also got some livestock that they're doing as well. So looking forward to talking to the Comstocks at Watkins Mill Farm. Stick around.
Destination is on the right.
All right, we have arrived, and I can see Jason outside the garage there by the greenhouse, and I just saw his wife Pam walk inside. So there's this Coyote tractor. Might talk to him a little bit about that too. All right, we're here at Watkins Mill Farm. I've got Jason Comstock and Pam Comstock here, and really excited to see you guys. You know, Jason's been 20 some years since we worked together.
Been a while, yeah. We worked at CompuServe from '92 to about 2000s when I left.
Yeah, I want to say I left 2001 or so, and I stayed in corporate America, and you took a little different route.
Well, so we went to a smaller company, went to another small company, small IT startup company, and then we decided back in 2005 that maybe we're going to do something different and not go into the corporate space. So we started our own IT services business.
Nice.
And we take care of companies that are 10 to 100 employees that need an IT department, and they're not big enough to do it themselves.
Awesome. What's the name of your company?
Clarity Technology Solutions.
Clarity Technology. So that's not greenhouse business.
That is not completely IT geek, sit in front of a screen, out talking to people a lot.
So in addition to your IT business, you got the greenhouse. And so Pam, is this your labor of love? Is that how we arrived at the greenhouse?
This started out as a hobby.
Based on what I'm looking at here, you guys have gone beyond hobby.
Maybe a little.
Yeah.
Well, COVID, of course, kind of drove a lot of people back home. Well, our project with all our kids was we're expanding our garden. We always have had a garden, just a different size. It's like everybody's home. Guess what? We're going to expand this thing out. So we built more beds. The greenhouse had been a discussion of Pam's for a year or something that she had been interested in.
So with our gardens, I had always tried to start seeds inside, and I just never was successful. There's only so much you can do with artificial sun inside. I'd end up with plants that were too woody because they didn't have the wind, that type of thing. And so I wanted to get a greenhouse. And so in 22, I talked him into building a greenhouse. Yeah, so our son built it partially on his spring break from college, and Jason finished it up. And I bought, I don't know, 150 seed packets. And
it's all for personal?
It was all for personal use.
Okay.
And somebody mentioned as an aside, wonder if there's a way we can recoup any of this investment. Yeah.
Nice.
And so I decided I planted all of the seed packets, all of them. And that's how it started.
So you guys have a great location here. A lot of traffic on the road here, so that worked well. And so did you open last year and sell? How did it go? Did you guys cover the greenhouse cost?
We did, but we opened late because it was kind of an afterthought to start this business. But we sold most of our tomatoes and peppers out just in those 2 weeks. And so, this year we're trying to be ready earlier.
So this year we're this coming weekend, so it's Tuesday. This weekend is Mother's Day, right?
Yeah.
And you guys are open this weekend?
We're open Saturdays in April and May.
Okay.
That's the plan.
And your hours are on your Facebook page, I know that.
Correct, and the sign that's out at the end of the drive.
All right.
9 to 2 Saturdays.
So, so you're probably gonna have a good crowd this weekend. This is opening weekend for tomatoes and the peppers. Have they been already out?
They're ready to come out.
Yeah.
They're ready to go too.
Yeah.
All right, and you might be able to tell for those of you watching in the background, we got chickens in the background too, but we'll get to those later. So one of the things that intrigued me when we talked a couple weeks ago was that you've done pretty much all heirloom seeds. And I mentioned that to a couple people, and they were like, what does that mean? Why heirloom seeds? Why did you guys go heirloom?
Well, an heirloom is it's a stabilized variety of a plant. The main reason I go with heirlooms is there's just a huge variety. So if you go to the big box stores and buy a tomato, you might have 3, 4, 5 different options. almost all red. You might get a yellow, something like that.
Gotcha.
But there's tomatoes all colors of the rainbow. Same with peppers, and that's my main reason for wanting to do heirloom. But the other benefit is that they're all open pollinated seeds, which means you can save your seeds. As long as you isolate it from other tomatoes, you can save those seeds and you get the same tomato next year from those seeds.
The other day when Jason and I were talking, you sent me the list of all of your heirloom varieties. How many varieties are we talking about here?
I think we've got 50 or 60 tomatoes and probably about 40 different peppers.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, what's interesting about the heirloom varieties of tomatoes is that some people like small, they like a thick consistency when they're making the tomato sauce, or they want a lot of flavor, or they want a different color, or they like the shapes. So there's a whole variety that you get with the heirlooms, and that's what those 50 different varieties will give us, and people who come.
That's cool. That's cool. I love to mix up different varieties into my salsas for partly that. I do different peppers and different types of tomatoes just to get the different colors and consistencies. So cool. Well, we'll take a walk around and maybe look at some of what you guys have here, and then let's step into the greenhouse here and talk a little bit about what you guys have learned in terms of owning a greenhouse, and maybe what you learned along the way. And I've wanted a greenhouse for years, and this one's pretty awesome. So let's step inside there and take a look. All right. All right. Before we step into the greenhouse, there's a lot of variety out here, and I don't see a lot of tomatoes out here, so maybe you guys can tell me what you've got going on out here and why it's out here right now instead of in the greenhouse.
Well, most of what's out here is your colder weather plants. I mean, it was freezing cold until about, 6 days ago.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got outside right now. We've got quite a bit of tomatoes in the greenhouse, but this was the stuff that could be out here.
Okay. So lettuces, I see some celery.
Yeah, we've got 3 different celeries, onions, cucumbers. Now those are a warm weather plant, but so I've been moving those in and out.
Okay.
But they're pretty big. They needed to come out here.
Yep.
We've got some kale, broccoli, cauliflower, 3 different cauliflowers, about 6 different kinds of cabbage over here.
Okay.
And then going to the warm weather plants that we just brought out last weekend, we've got some zucchini and then some of the tomatoes. We've got out the cold hardy herbs and different lettuces, and then on the table you can see some tomatoes that I've just started putting tags in today.
Gotcha.
So we're getting those all ready to be out for this coming weekend, Mother's Day weekend.
So what do you think, Mother's Day, you guys get some traffic in Mother's Day? When will you sell out? And you also mentioned that whatever's left over, you got a pretty cool project that you're sending that off to. So how long before you sell out of the popular stuff?
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
The few tomatoes that we put out last week, they were mostly gone, but it's really hard to tell. Conventional wisdom says in Ohio you don't plant your tomatoes or your peppers at least until after Mother's Day. I would say at least another week on peppers. So that's when gardeners start to wake up, and if they haven't bought something, they go and get it. So, but we are planning to be open through the end of May. And then anything we don't sell, I've talked with Mid-Ohio Food Cooperative or Food Bank. They've got a garden there. And our plan is to give them the rest of the plants at that point, and then they can help feed people here in Central Ohio.
That's awesome.
So I'm hoping I want to plant enough so that we don't run out for everybody.
Right.
And then the extra we can.
Always good to have that extra to do the good thing with the community. That's cool. And all right, well, let's take a step into the greenhouse, and then you guys can tell me after we get down to the greenhouse, we can talk livestock, what you guys are doing with livestock. Cool. This thing is awesome. Pretty excited about this, actually. So what's the dimensions of the greenhouse?
It's 12 by 20.
12 by 20, okay. And you guys built this yourself?
Well, we did, but it's based on a kit. So Yoder's Produce, it's up in Amish country, is where we went to. We had come across Yoder's Produce just in doing some research and some different things that I was involved in. So we decided to take a trip up there. I think you went up early.
I went up by myself.
She went up by herself, and I started getting email and text because they had a small version of this set up inside. She goes, "Look, this is it. This is what I want." And then it just went from there, and we made a trip up to Amish country, got it all ordered, made another trip up there with the horse trailer to pick up all the parts. that we needed and brought it home and started building it.
So from beginning to end, I know obviously you probably didn't work on it. Maybe you did straight through. I think you mentioned your son helped get it kicked off. About how many hours do you think you had in building this?
So he started on his spring break. So we got it all laid out, got it squared up. So we had all the tubing in the right place and stuff, and then set those in. Those tubes are in 2 feet of ground.
Okay.
So this thing was very, very well anchored. He worked for it all through spring break, and then I picked it up in the evening, and then the other kids came out and helped as we needed extra pair of hands. But I would say it was probably 3 weeks or so, evenings.
It's a solid effort to get it put together. And like you said,
absolutely. And there was just some things we didn't know how to do. We hadn't built one of these before, or there was something missing in the instructions or not clear. And Yoder's is great. Call them up. Okay, I'm stuck here. How do I do this? They'll walk you through what you need to do.
Nice. Nothing's easy these days, right?
No.
And if you get all the directions, you're lucky. And you know, how many of us read them all?
Yeah,
I try to,
but a little bit of trial and error. But we worked through it, and where we needed lots of hands, we got the hands, and friends would come over and help that had some skills that I didn't have to help make this thing happen.
That's cool. That's very cool. I call it the Hardy way. Usually is harder to do than it should be sometimes, but that's part of the learning process. If the next one will go up a lot easier. You guys know what you're doing. So is there going to be a next one?
We'll see. Maybe. We'll see how this year goes. We go back and forth on that.
So it's a family business, though, right? I think I saw some stuff on Facebook with your daughters filling trays and.
Oh yeah.
Yep,
your son helped.
They come and help and move things in and out and tag when we need to tag. And
tonight we're going to be putting tags in all the tomatoes, and that's going to be
ramping
all
up.
Hands on deck because it's a lot of moving trays.
So I'm looking around. Clearly, we've got a lot of tomatoes in here. Peppers in here as well?
Yeah, mostly what's in here is tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, and some tomatillos and ground cherries and that type of thing.
Okay. So you guys have learned a few things along the way. I think you mentioned that you started with maybe a different heater originally, or a different, smaller propane tanks.
Well, smaller propane tanks, because by the time we got this done, it was March, and we hadn't really thought through how we were going to fuel that. We had several 20-pound propane bottles. We pulled the propane bottles off the camper, and we just started switching those bottles out. That got old really fast. And paying a premium price to fill those propane tanks, it got us through the season. We knew we didn't want to repeat it. So what we did, we got the big 120-gallon on the back there, and they got a little wireless meter on it. They just stop by, fill it up when it needs to be filled up, and that was one more thing off our plate.
Super convenient.
Yes,
gotcha.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. I was talking about how nice the gravel floor was in here. Did you guys have that plan from the start?
We did not. We started out with landscape tarp. We found that was last year. And found out very early there's some low spots underneath of this. So when it would rain, there'd be puddles I'd be walking through in the greenhouse.
And you're squishing your way through it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have some other floor this year, but I decided to cheap out, and I put chicken shavings down. Well, there were still low spots, so I ended up with mushy wet
pine shavings.
So you just took the top off and dumped it in with the tractor, right?
That would have been nice, but no, because everything was already in here, the shelves were in here, the grow lights were already wired in, we were not going to move it. So it was Jason in 2 5-gallon buckets.
So the family was all vacant that weekend, and we got to get something else to do, right?
Yeah,
Dad will
they were
take care of that.
Conveniently absent.
Yes.
You mentioned that I think your kids are all in 4-H, is that right?
So they've all been through 4-H.
Okay.
So we've done 4-H since Katie, who you remember from CompuServe days. She started it in there, and then we've just grown and expanded there. We've raised poultry for fair projects. Our first year of poultry, we were surprised they lived to fair, and when we got to fair, we had the tiny, puniest little birds. They were just sad.
We've learned.
We've learned a lot since then. But,
hey, that's cool, because I've never done 4-H. I grew up out in the country at one point where I thought, had we stayed there, we probably would have gotten into it. And so I think it's something that most people miss out on and don't get that true connection with livestock and kind of where our food comes from. So I think that's kind of a cool thing to experience. So what else in the greenhouse before we shift to next step to talk more livestock and what you guys have been doing there. Anything else about the greenhouse that you'd like to share? Or
one thing that surprised us, we had the kit, we had the heater, is how fast it gets hot in here. So when we didn't start out with a vent. So you need a heater and a vent, because in a lot of times, especially in the spring and March, April, they'll both run in the same day, because you need that heater overnight. But once the sun comes out, if you're already starting it at 60 degrees or whatever in here, it'll be 120 degrees before you know it, if you do not vent. Can't open the sides in March, but you can vent it out and keep it, below 80.
Got it.
And we've seen in the springtime, when the sun comes out, this will jump up 30 degrees in short order. And then as the sun goes down, it'll fall off 30 degrees really fast.
So from a seasonality perspective, is this just going to be a spring season greenhouse? Do you do anything in the summer at all, or will you do any kind of fall plantings or anything? What's your thoughts there?
I'm going to try to overwinter some peppers and artichokes this year. For the most part, during the summer, we'll see how hot it is in here. I might have some plants in here. But our plan is to divide off like the back 12 feet or the back 8 feet and put those plants that we want to overwinter back there and just keep it 45 degrees or above, so we're not pouring propane into it. But that's my plan.
So hydroponics, aquaponics, any of that stuff come across your research?
More ideas, please.
We have looked at that.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that
is
stuff.
Really cool. We're gonna do that one year.
Get you some tilapia or some catfish.
Yeah, you'd asked about lighting.
Yes.
So that might be something to add here, because we have the 3 tiers of shelves.
Okay.
So the top tiers are getting all the sunlight. Bottom tiers get little bits of it here and there. So we put grow lights on the bottom of the shelves, which you're not going to see right now. But at night, this place lights up between the overhead lights, and this is all LED lights. And what we have in the grow lights, it's a beacon in the neighborhood.
It is.
So do the LED, kind of the decorative lights here, are they providing any spectrum to the plants at all? They're just more for
make me happy. I
like that. I like the ambiance.
Now this space that's behind you here, normally she has a little table here when she's doing her seed work. She's got her Bluetooth speaker, she's got her heat in the back.
Happy place.
And she's out here until 1 in the morning just planting and doing whatever.
Listen to books on tape, well, they're not on tape. Audio books.
Yeah. Tape.
Just dated myself.
That's awesome. I can see this being the happy place, and it looks like you guys have created a very cool thing. So let's check out the livestock and stuff like that. We'll go on to that and kind of talk about what's worked and not worked, and where you guys are headed, and see what we got there. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. That has been a fantastic tour of the cold weather plants outside, hearing a little bit about how this all was started, the greenhouse, and the I'll say trials and tribulations, but also the joy and the happiness that this has brought. Really appreciate you guys having me out. I'm wishing you a great season, and I'm jealous. I actually am quite jealous. So thanks for having me out.
All right. Thank you for stopping by.
We appreciate you coming out to see what we're doing in the greenhouse.
All right. Thanks a lot.